Howdy, soldiers. Oh my goodness, it is only like 3 weeks into the new year, and already I feel like 10 years have passed. How did this happen? I've already had enough coffee today that my stomach hurts, so we're switching to tea for today's video, but don't worry, I did take a B vitamin half an hour ago, so we'll see when that kicks in. Does anybody care about December books anymore? I sure hope so, because that's the video that you clicked on. Due to timing and scheduling and the holidays, I didn't end up having time to post my December reading wrap-up. And I know it's mid-January, but guess what? I still read those things and I still want to yap about them. Last December, aka as of 3 weeks ago, I read some of my favorite books of the year, and I read some of my least favorite books of the year. We met bio robots with a conscience, we took a trip on down to hell, and we read the most mid-Christmas romance that I've ever set my hands on. I DNF'd something, I accidentally got extremely existential over Christmas break, and I read a sick-ass dragon book in which I am paying homage to today with some adorable little dragon earrings that my girlfriend got me for Christmas. So if you're still interested in listening to me talk about all the books that I read last year of December, without further ado, grab a drink, grab a snack, buckle in, and let's go over the 6.5 books that I finished in December of 2024. Now, it is a new year, so why don't we just get like wild and crazy and talk about the book that I DNF'd first. I don't have a physical copy of it anymore because I already donated it, but that unfortunately was A Dawn with the Wolf Knight by Elise Kova. Last year, I tried to read her entire Married to Magic series, so I read the first 3. So I finished A Deal with the Elf King, A Dance with the Fae Prince, and A Duel with the Vampire Lord. In Vampire Lord, where she mentions the lycanthropes, and I was like, oh shit, there's gonna be a werewolf one, like I gotta get on this, because their lore seemed really interesting. And it was, until it wasn't. Our main character, Phelan, is a witch. Why is her name Phelan? I don't know. Very petty little thing to pick at. And one night when she's foraging in the forest, she accidentally comes across a moon spirit who then attaches herself to her. But then it also turns out that like that moon spirit is needed by the king of the werewolves to basically keep his people's magic. But then because she holds a piece of this moon spirit's power, the wolf king then decides to marry her, and then he forcibly takes her back to his camp with his people. And then, oh hey, there's a sexy wolf knight there who is gonna protect her. And then they're trying to like overthrow the king and like have her escape, but also like, oh my god, this guy, he's like so sexy. So I read about 50% of this book, and it was because of the lore. The magic of Phelan is so cool. Like, she's a thread witch. She can like weave threads of magic into stuff. She has this giant cloak that she always wears that like is her protection. And every time something significant in her life happens, she like embroiders a little patch onto it. So she just has this like cool patchwork cloak that's full of magic. And while I always say, fuck the moon, that bitch, this moon spirit is very sweet, but also doesn't know how to cook. And it's just like a really funny through line that keeps happening, where she keeps trying to make food, but she doesn't understand what humans eat. So she's like, this is food, right? And they're like, yeah, thanks. And I like our love interest Evander well enough, but oh my god, what a big, scaly man who's very obviously written by a woman. Why are you telling this girl who you met like 8 hours ago all of your deepest, darkest inner secrets? Hey, guess what? Some things can be inner thoughts, and that's okay. But the thing that turned me off is something that I dislike a lot about many werewolf books, and that is that this alpha werewolf king, it's just so much dubcon, just so many grapey vibes. I'm this super strong magical alpha male who has urges and they will not be contained, and I'm just like, get away from me. So even though we had pretty high stakes, literally the magic of our entire world is going to disappear and I will be sexually assaulted very soon, I just didn't care about anybody. Nobody made me care for them, so I just didn't. Yeah, it wasn't for me. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been having a whole lot of anxiety lately because the world is metaphorically and literally on fire. AI is gonna take over soon. TikTok's getting banned, so like, just end me now. But a novella that single-handedly gave me hope about the future was the incredibly sweet, very lovingly existential A Song for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, an ecofuturism sci-fi novella where a couple hundred years ago we created robots to help us with menial everyday tasks, and one day somehow they all gained sentience, but instead of trying to destroy the earth and all the humans, they were just like, oh, great, thanks. We're gonna just leave. And then they all just walked off into the forest and were never seen again. And hundreds of years later, we meet Dex, who is a non-binary T-monk who experiences career burnout and decides to just fuck off to the wilds for a little while to like find themselves again, and comes across one of these fabled robots. And I love Moscap the robot so much. And while we've seen plenty of other media do the machines in nature, think like Castle in the Sky type of thing, where, oh, we're living in harmony, they are wild built. They are built from other robots robots building robots from other robot parts, how something that was once man-made now returns to a nature that they never knew, how one of them sits in caves and watches stalagmites grow, or how one of them records and memorizes different types of bird songs. Moscap, very enthusiastic about bugs, which can relate. By juxtaposing humans versus the machine versus the environment, she creates this really interesting little Venn diagram niche. By exploring how humans connect with their ecosystems and their environments, we also explore how we connect with one another and how we live in harmony with ourselves. I know, it's a little existential, especially for only 147 pages. Like, ooh, is consciousness more than the sum of its parts? We don't know. This did make me cry. It was incredibly sweet. And like, if you ever feel purposeless, I would highly recommend reading this. It feels like a warm hug or a cup of tea. And now to talk about a book that, ooh, it let me down. It let me down hard. This was not my bag of dice. 2024 was the year of me reading more romance novels, and particularly something that I want to get into specifically next Christmas is I want to get into more holiday rom-coms because I didn't think it was my thing. And then I read a couple of them and was like, oh my God, character development is happening as we speak. So when I heard that one of my favorite sapphic romance novelists, Ashley Herring Blake, was coming out with a book that's Make the Season Bright, which is a sapphic holiday rom-com, I was like, I am all about this shit. Give it to me. Well, I sure did get it, and I also got because I'm so disappointed to say this was incredibly mid. Two ex-fiancés find themselves in the same house over Christmas and are trying to save face to their respective friend groups by pretending that they don't know one another, but then are trying to reconcile their feelings and also kind of falling in love all over again. And overall, it's fine. It's a silly, sapphic Hallmark rom-com full of bad Christmas metaphors and smut. It is over the top and incredibly Christmassy, and like, I will give it to her that she does melancholy and nostalgia incredibly well. And there is a lot in here on, you know, not shrinking yourself to fit in a relationship and listening to your own gut feelings when it comes to bad decisions. But no one freaking talks to each other for like 400 pages. Charlotte is a control freak who wears a lot of black, which like relatable, but I got tired of her shtick pretty quick. And also she's like such a shitty friend. I don't know why these people like her. Brighton did seem more sympathetic, but then also I'm just a sucker for a pathetic love declaration. And also Brighton was the one to leave Charlotte on the altar and then just never talk to her again. So I'm like, girly pop, we gotta have a discussion right now. What the fuck? But also, like, fight for the girl you love. Make compromises. Go to therapy. And the thing that I'm most disappointed in is that by the end, they don't solve anything. I guess kind of spoiler alert, but they just kind of swap situations. Like at the beginning, Brighton ran away because she was making herself smaller to fit into Charlotte's life. But then it's just like, oh, well, Charlotte needs to learn to like do the exact same thing. And then they're like, oh, we're better now. That's not an ending. That's not compromise. That's just, you just did the thing. I was willing to give second chance romance a chance, but I hate miscommunication tropes with a burning, fiery passion. If it was gonna do it, it had to do it right. And this did not do it right. Ashley Herring Blake, I'm very disappointed in you. Sorry, I know I'm kind of speeding through this stuff today, but I have a friend's art installation that I have to be at in like 2 hours. So we gotta speed run this. Next up, we do two vampire anti-heroes on a little jaunt on down to hell in a book that was pitched to me as Akotar meets Dante's Inferno, and I was all about it. Because when Tor Bramble sent me a copy of The Songbird and the Heart of Stone by Carissa Broadbent, I was so excited that I was ready to burn down an AMW, like, respectfully. This is set in the same world as A Serpent in the Wings of Night, which is a vampire fantasy world that I really love. And this follows Mish, who is a side character of the original duology, who used to be a priestess of a god of the sun until she got forcibly turned into a vampire and then killed the guy who did it. Hell yeah, girl power. But oopsie daisies, turns out that guy that turned her was actually a prince, and now the House of Shadow wants to kill her. But thankfully, an estranged prince of the House of Shadow says that he needs her help in a secret mission, so he takes her on a Dante's Inferno nine circles of hell trip on down to the underworld to resurrect their vampire goddess. And of course, once we're on this journey, ooh, death, danger, destruction, we're learning more about his backstory and nefarious things happening in the court politics. Mish is such an interesting character because she used to be a magic user pledged to a god of the sun. When she turned into a vampire, she still has her sun powers, but every time she uses them, they burn her. because vampires can't stand in the sun. So like she has all these burn scars and chronic pain due to that. And her story plays a lot with a loss of innocence and abandonment and kind of blind devotion and a pretty intense dissection of religion. And this is not a bad book, but I do want to like Carissa Broadbent's writing a little bit more than I do, because I think she's really, really good at kind of overall plot, but like the smaller details are where it kind of falls apart, because once we break into the underworld, there are rivers of blood and temples of bone and like these wolf guardians that are just shadows but with bronze skulls. There are guardians of the death gates that are big enough to blot out the sky. Like her worlds are so cool. There's a lot of info dumps because her lore is so intricate, and I love her lore, but it just felt a little bit, in your face. Sometimes her character's voice doesn't match the tone of the rest of the book, like it's a little too silly or a little too flighty. And she does a lot of, I knew this person just felt this, and it's like, yeah, okay, sure you do, girl. The love interests have no spark, pun intended, until literally the scene before they kiss. I'm like, why do you guys like each other? But mostly, I'm just like, why did you make this a vampire book? And like, I get that she's trying to go for brand recognition or whatever, but this was such a cool story that I actually felt limited by the vampire plot. Circles of hell, underworld stuff, that I wish she had just made this its own thing. If you like Carissa Broadbent, you're probably gonna like this, and I really liked it because it speaks to a very niche interest of mine, but I do wish that it just been not this. Second to last is a book that I am putting my pride aside to talk about, because when I first saw this advertised online, I was like, ew, fantasy books written by men? Gross. Being a feminist means understanding when you're a part of the problem, and I realized that I have been incredibly biased over the last couple of years, whereas I now almost exclusively read fantasy novels written by women. But I did not come to this conclusion out of nowhere, okay? I have read so many fantasy novels that are like the classic fantasy novels where the men just like man around in their armor and their big swords, manly stuff, and then the women just like breast boobily around in their leather loincloths or whatever and have like 3 lines. Is it so unrealistic to want a fantasy novel that passes the Bechdel test? I don't think so. I was also letting that limit me in what I've been reading, and there was a big book that I saw all over the internet over the last couple of years that I didn't want to read because I was like, I don't know if I trust that man. And then you know what? I was wrong. I fully contribute this change of heart to Zoran on TikTok, because she was the one that just continually told me to read this until I broke and bought it. And that is a book that I have not been able to stop talking about for the last month and a half, and it's Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. Hold on to your teeth. This is a new Norse-inspired epic fantasy novel about the aftermath of a war between gods and men, and gods rising once again. We follow 3 main points of view character. Number 1 is Orca, who is a mother whose child gets taken by a mysterious force. Varg, an escaped indentured servant who has some secret power of his own. And Elvar, a young warrior who's trying to prove her mettle within her warband, whose world gets upended when, oh hey, magic exists. All 3 of their worlds are interconnected as they're starting to find more and more children of the gods and realizing that there has been some behind the scenes shenanigans that they really should have been paying attention to. First of all, the writing is so good. His descriptions are so detailed, but they never feel overwhelming. You feel like you can integrate yourself so well into this world, while at the same time, like, oh my god, we're just gonna sail this Viking ship through the skull of a dead god because the city is like within its rib cage. What? But also like, damn, you can't escape taxes even in a fantasy world. Great fight scenes and really great subversion of a lot of women character stereotypes. Holy shit, Orca is so fucking badass. And like, Elvar is basically if Bilbo Baggins were a shield maiden. I guessed a few parts, but I don't think that's a bad thing, because he so richly develops these scenarios and these characters and like sets the scene so well that it feels like he's leading you to a point rather than just throwing the point in your face. Like, does that make sense? I have 2 very small petty complaints about this book. Number 1, he uses the word thought cage to refer to like getting in your own head, like at least twice a page for the entire book. So it gets very tired very fast. And second of all, the trolls in this world, and we encounter 2 or 3 of them, they are all naked and they just like swing around, if you know what I mean. And he like focuses on that quite a bit. And I'm like, John, John, why do I need to know this? If you like bones, boats, and badass warriors, you're going to love this book. The descriptions were chef's kiss. The character development was so satisfying while still giving you like little 1-2 punches every once in a while to keep things spicy. And especially after that ending, like I need the sequel in my little grubby book dragon claws like stat. Wow, okay, I can't pinpoint the exact moment when the B vitamin kicked in, but it's hitting now. I'm ready to go. And lastly, the last book that I read of 2024 is the one that gave me the most to think about and gave me the worst existentialism. If you're thinking about reading this book, hey, maybe don't do it over Christmas when you're spending time with your family. It'll make you want to scream. It'll make you want to cry. It'll make you want to overthrow the government. It's Heavenly Tyrant by Sharon J. Zhao. The long-awaited sequel to Iron Widow is finally here in all 521 pages of her glory. Whereas in Iron Widow, we follow the beginning of Zaytan's rule as she becomes the first solo female pilot of a mech bot to fight aliens, but then also is fighting the patriarchy, trying to take down the government. And the female rage continues on X Games mode in this sequel. It is heavily political. It is a bloody revolution. This is a war book. What actually happens after you overthrow the government? Like, what happens to society and hierarchy and the political structure and the economy? How do you play with these people when you have been so full of rage this entire time against them? The major theme is there will always be sacrifice in revolution, with very heavy subplots on what it means to be a woman and what it means to be a woman in power. Tinseng is somebody that you hate but love because he's right. Until he's not. You're doing the right thing, but you're going about it in the wrong way. But where does one end and the other begin? And just like Zaytan in this book, I am furious. The majority of this, for a multitude of reasons. Number one is that my earring keeps slipping around and like, you see what I have to deal with? Basically the same thing. I posted a video talking about this on TikTok, and I had somebody be like, I don't care about spoilers, please tell me if Yiji and Kimin are alive. And I was like, they are, but like at what cost? And the last 100 pages of this were fucked up. Oh my god. Oh, this book is horrible. Brackets complimentary. A horrible book full of horrible people that I feel horrible sympathy for. This is, I'm shocked. I'm gagged. I'm gooped. I don't know how I feel about this other than it was 5 stars. I literally can feel my heartbeat rising, so we're gonna put this down. And all that was that on that. There were the 6.5 books that I read in the final month of 2024. I want this to be an open and chill space, so please leave down below the books that you read in December, because December reading wrap-ups deserve representation. I read 2 5-star books at the end of the year, and I do think that if I had waited to make my best books of the year, Heavenly Tyrant probably would have ended up in the top 5. And I'm happy to report that my reading for the first couple weeks of 2025 is off to a good start. I've so far read 10s across the board, so very happy. Hopefully we can keep on this high note for the beginning of the year. Thankfully, I still have a little bit of time before I have to run out the door to my friend's event. And, oh shit, I gotta go grocery shopping tonight. Okay. Evening plans, done. You know where I clicked like the video? You know where I clicked to subscribe? I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!